What is going on YouTube? Should I give you guys a name like the Trend Baby Army or My Little Babies? I'm gonna start calling you that, My Little Babies. I think it's a little cringe, but you know, that's totally fine. Anywho, well, I mean, you guys could already tell by the title of the video, but this video is basically gonna be... So we're gonna start this video with talking about upper. Now, the upper body is definitely a ton of muscle groups. I mean, you got the chest, you've got the back, you've got the delts, you've got the biceps. Now, these are just going to be the exercises in which to structure, but the order of which you're going to want to place the exercises is literally going to be dependent on your needs and your muscle groups. So say your chest is lacking, you're going to want to start with chest. Say your quads are lacking, you're going to want to start with quads. But it's really up to you. And I'm also going to give you guys one more tip and trick before we actually dive into the video, and that is going to be some muscle groups, if you think they would do better on a lower day when they're an upper body muscle group. Simply, like maybe you want to throw your side delts and your delt training onto the lower day, and at some point you'll throw it in there. Again, the exercise selection and order is up to you, but this is pretty much the exercises you're going to want and you're going to need to really bump up and try to promote a balanced physique. There's obviously nuanced exercises that Yo and Keenan talked about, like supination, but we're not going to be talking about any of that phony, bony, science-based baloney BS. We're going to get straight down to the basics and help you guys make some pretty good progress while keeping it pretty simple, because I know a lot of you guys are pretty slow up in the head, and that is including myself. You're going to want a press of some sort or a fly, just a chest exercise. Now you can program 2 or you can just hold 1. Obviously, there is going to be the upper pec exercises. A great variation that I love to do is going to be running the simple oldest trick in the book, which is gonna be, one of my favorite tricks to do is get a big arch on a shoulder press with a neutral grip, and there's gonna be a ton of upper pec shoulder flexion, which is going to bias the upper chest very well. Obviously, you can just do a Smith machine incline or perhaps a dumbbell incline. You can even try out the new Planet Fitness machines with a neutral grip is going to be upper chest bias. You can even do an upper pec biased fly, which is just a high to low fly, and obviously it is still going to be a very good upper chest isolation. Now you can run that alone, or you can run a flat press alone or a fly flat alone, but you're going to also maybe want to program a second chest exercise being via a flat press or a fly. The pec deck at Planet Fitness is not my favorite, but it's not bad. You can also just do seated cable flies, or you don't have to do a fly. You can also just do presses only. They have a bunch of good flat presses, and then of course they have the Smith machine. And you can also run dumbbells if that's what you'd like to do. Next, biceps. The thing about Planet Fitness is they actually have a ton of great preacher curls. It is very good, and I'm pretty sure it's ascending. I'd have to use it a little more, but to make it a descending profile, you're going to want to place your elbows a little higher on the pad, which is going to change the moment arm length, which is going to make it heavier when your arms are closer to extension rather than a more flexed elbow position. Now, they also have this great incline curl, and I mean, it's really just elbow flexion, dog. You can also do dumbbell curls, which are going to be more brachioradialis, but really, you're going to get a huge pair of biceps. You can also do bicep dumbbell preacher curls, which are really good, but just some sort of supinated curl variation is going to be great for biasing the biceps. You can do hammer curls if you want, but bro, they're vaulted. I mean, it's the big 25. I mean, what are you really gonna do? You're gonna want some tricep movements. Now, for the medial and lateral head, you can do this tricep extension machine, which is actually very, very good. It is going to simulate a skull crusher and JM press, and it's gonna be very stable considering you have humeral support. You can also just run a Smith machine JM press if you're boring, which is fine, and you can also band it to give it a better resistance profile and maybe just feel better overall on your elbows. You can also run just skull crushers if you'd like for the medial and lateral head. For the long head, you can do a long head biased tricep extension, which is going to be very, very good. You know what I mean. Which means your arm is going to be in a very extended shoulder position and it's going to be fixed, which is going to bias the long head of the tricep during elbow extension. You can also run the PGR pullover, which I haven't ran in a while, but is a great long head exercise, training the long head with a free weights via shoulder extension, but it's also training the medial lateral head through elbow extension at the same time. However, there is going to be some lower pec involvement, but that is completely fine. But you could also just do a long head isolation, which is still going to involve the lower pecs, which is just doing the top half of a pullover with full ROM, which, I mean, you guys are seeing it in the clip. This is my buddy Sky from TikTok. And I used to run them a while back too, but, you know, they just became too much. A lateral delt movement. I mean, you don't really need this because if you're doing shoulder press, but I would definitely recommend it. I recommend doing both by all means in any split because I think it is definitely a key to maximizing your delt growth. You can, Planet Fitness may not have a lateral raise machine, but you can do your own variation on the hip abduction machine, and now you're just doing it, but shoulder abduction on the same machine. Which is if you want to do that, but you can also just do, you know, the boring old basic cable lateral raise, which is totally fine. You can also do which is my buddy Red Lifts. He was doing this variation. It is a Y raise on the cable row, which Planet Fitness does have the dual pulley system rows, so you can definitely run it on there. Next is going to be some sort of lower lat, which is still hitting the entire lat, but is a lower lat biased frontal plane pull. You can do pull downs, and they have a ton of good machines there that I do enjoy. You can also just do a classic wide grip pull up or assisted pull up if you're not quite at that stage, and maybe invest in a belt if you want to do them weighted. You can also just do the basic cable pull down, but why would you do that? Because they're literally boring as fuck. But I enjoy them still, so I guess it doesn't really matter. No, I don't actually enjoy them. I meant to say if you guys enjoy them. It doesn't really matter. Still a great exercise. You can also do the dro downs, but that's, again, we're getting into the niche exercises, and it's like, bro, not everyone's trying to hear all that. Not everyone's trying to hear all that.
Everybody's not trying to hear that. Everybody's not trying to hear that, but...
Then we are going to get into the front delt training. Obviously just a frontal plane shoulder press, or if you want to go more transverse plane, then you are going to be a lot more upper pec versus more side delt. So it's really up to you and your preferences and what you're trying to prioritize. Both are great exercises, and they have a ton of variations. You can do dumbbells, you can do Smith machine. They have a ton of good machines. Upper lats. Now this is a total choice. You don't really need to do this, but if you wanted, they do have some pretty good sagittal rows. We're gonna move on from this segment pretty quickly because, again, man, we're talking about redundant training. You know what I mean? And then upper back exercises, you can do a Kelso shrug like this TNF variation on the Smith machine, which is a very good variation, or you can do it on any of the chest supported machine rows. You can just run the Kelso shrugs there. They also have a bunch of good upper back bias rows, which you can do, but if not, you can also do your makeshift one on the Smith machine, which isn't bad. I didn't set it up properly, but if set up properly, it's actually very good. Then the rear delts. Obviously, they're going to be stimulated plenty through rows, but if you think they're a lacking point, then you can obviously do a rear delt fly on the reverse pec deck, or just, you know, the cable rear delt fly. You can also do core, but core is totally optional if you need it or not. Same with like forearms and the niche exercises. So without further ado, let's move on to the lower section. You're going to want some sort of quad compound, and this is going to be totally freaking awesome. They have a ton of great leg presses, and I know a ton of the Planet Fitnesses just got hack squats in, which is going to be great. And if you're not digging any of those exercises, you can definitely dive straight into a Smith machine squat variation. But again, that's totally up to you. Now, we're going to want to bias the rec fem, which you're going to need a stable hip for while loading knee extensions. So obviously, without, any question, the leg extension. However, if you're gym pinning the leg extension with like 40 gym pins, then you could maybe do Smith machine sissy squats, or if your gym has the new hack squats, you could run a hack squat sissy squat. As long as your hip is staying fixed and you're not cheating your reps, it will be pretty good stimulus for the rec fem. Hamstring training. Now, you can do these 45 extensions. If you're feeling it, you can drag this over to a Smith machine. If not, you could drag this possibly over to a cable. And if you're not that strong, maybe you will be able to suffice with just the dumbbells if you're lucky. However, if you aren't able to load the 45 extension in any sort of way or move it, then you can obviously just run an SLDL, which is still going to be very good. You can also run RDLs if that's your preference, which is going to debias a little bit of the hamstrings and shift it a little bit more onto the glutes and adductors. These are also, all of these variations are going to be great for the spinal erectors, the erector spinae, as some would like to call it. Calf training, just literally, and the seated, any leg press, just do the toe press, and I'm pretty sure they also have like a toe press machine, but I don't know if it goes heavy enough for a lot of you guys with those strong as an ox calves, because I haven't really tested out a lot of the machines at Planet Fitness, but that's going to be great for the gastroff. Gastroff. Glute training, you can do Smith machine hip thrusts, and I'm not sure if Planet Fitness has a hip thrust machine, but I saw TNF run this variation on a hamstring curl, which is very, very interesting. But I don't know if you're able to load it heavy enough. Also, I totally forgot, but hamstring curls. Now, I would prefer a seated variation, obviously. And they actually have a very good hamstring machine, and y'all can run the iron on pad method if you're finding yourself not getting secured in and going into too much hip extension. However, if you guys want, they also have a bunch of lying hamstring curls, which are also just going to be great. Now, I hope you guys take this information as you will, structure it accordingly to where you have lacking muscle groups, and I hope you have a ton of fun running your new upper-lower splits. And, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch ya in the next one.